In this lecture, we are going to handle the form submission with JavaScript. By default, the browser will submit data to a specific URL. We saw an example of this with the search form. After submitting the search form, the entire page refreshes. We are redirected to the search results page. This behavior is quick and simple. However, in the modern age of web development, developers have moved towards submitting forms with JavaScript. Reloading a page can take up unnecessary resources. Rather than refreshing the page, it's much better to send data to the server and wait for a response with JavaScript. We are going to begin with the registration form. In the browser, let's check it out. We have 3 fields for the email, name, and password. The values for these fields should be retrieved. During submission, we should tell the user that their account is being created. Lastly, we should disable the fields and buttons. Let's get started. In your editor, open the frontend.js file. At the bottom of the function, we need to listen for an event called submit on the registration form. We already have a variable that stores a reference to the registration form. This is why variables are important. We can reuse them for other parts of an application. Let's chain the addEventListener function to the signup variable. The name of the event is called submit. The submit event is emitted if a form is submitted. We can intercept the request by listening to this event. Let's pass in an arrow function that accepts the event object. Inside our function, let's call the preventDefault function on the event object. This is the most important step. By default, the page will be redirected to the submission page. We can stop the browser from redirecting visitors by calling this method. There's one caveat. We are responsible for handling the form. That won't be a problem. Submitting a form is easy with WordPress. Before sending data, we must disable the form. Otherwise, visitors may attempt to submit the form again. Sending excessive submissions can potentially crash our site. It's considered good practice to disable a form while a request is being sent. In your editor, open the opmodal.php file. Search for the registration form. It can be found under a comment that says Register Form. I wrapped the form with a field set element. This element is highly underrated. I don't find many developers using it. However, there's one advantage to adding this element to a form. Similar to listening to events, inputs must be disabled one at a time. The field set element offers a shortcut. We can directly disable the field. By doing so, children elements are disabled. It's faster to disable a single element than an entire list of elements. Let's select the field set element to disable the form. Switch back to the script file. First, we should select the field set element. Create a variable called signup_fieldSet. The value for this variable will be the following: signup_form.querySelector_fieldSet. All elements have the querySelector function. This function is not exclusive to the document object. By reusing the signup_form variable, we do not need to provide a specific selector. JavaScript will search for the field set element from within the registration form. After selecting the element, let's add the disabled attribute by calling the signup_fieldSet.setAttribute function. This function has 2 arguments. The first argument is the name of the attribute. Let's set the name to disabled. Next, we must provide the value for the attribute. The disabled attribute doesn't have a value. In this case, we can set the attribute's value to true. After disabling the fields, we should render a message to let users know that their registration is in process. Let's check out the template again. Above the field set element, there's a div tag with an ID called signup_status. Inside this element, we are going to render a message. I've prepared classes for formatting the message. Let's give it a try. Back in the script file, we should select this element. Below the signup field set variable, create another variable called signupStatus. The value for this variable will be the following: signupform.querySelector #signupStatus. Next, let's update the inner HTML property. The contents of an element can be updated through this property. We are going to insert a div tag with the following classes: modal status, modal status info. I'm using a template string despite not inserting a variable. Template strings have multi-line support. It'll be easier to read and write our code with a template string. There is one downside to using plain JavaScript. Syntax highlighting is not supported. If we were using React with JSX, this wouldn't be a problem. It's worth mentioning this if you plan on writing plain JavaScript. The classes I've provided will change the background and text color. You can check out the CSS file for the properties modified by these classes. Inside this element, let's write the following message: please wait, we are creating your account. We're finished. Let's try testing our form. In the browser, refresh the experimental page. Let's view the registration form from the modal. We can freely modify the form. After we've filled out the form, we can submit it. The page should not refresh. At the same time, the form has been completely disabled. We are not able to modify the fields after submission. Lastly, our message appears at the top. This is the exact behavior we were looking for. We can begin sending data to the form. Let's continue working on the form in the next lecture.